Okay, welcome to week number 3. You know what 3 means? 3 means the halfway point in this course. And after we complete week 3, which will be Sunday, you will not be able to submit assignments from weeks 1 to 3. You will not be able to do so. And it's very important that you get those in. I mean, if you're already graded week 1, I'm working on starting to get week 2 out. Hopefully have week 2 out by the weekend complete. And I do want to let you guys know that in week 1, one of the things that I want to remind you, and maybe it missed people doing week 1, hopefully it caught up with them by week 2, and that is make sure that you follow the rubric. Very, very, very important. Some of you lost points because I had specifically said in week 1 that assignment, which was 3 parts, 3 scenarios, should have been 1 page for each scenario, at least. And most of you did separate them. It was very important. And then you had borderline on pages. Make sure that your margin at the bottom is not very big. It should be the proper margin for APA. So don't just stop. Then the other thing is several of you did not have citations in each scenario, and you lost points for that. And I talked about that as well. It's very, very, very important, again, that you get into the habit of providing citations to support your statements in your papers. So make sure that you, for weeks 2 and 3 and going forth, make sure that you follow that rubric. And just a few of you didn't have cover pages or reference pages. Your reference information was blended into the paper. It's got to be a separate page. There may be a formatting issue, but you have to start another page. Make sure you do so. So it's very, very, very important that you follow what I say in the rubric. So hopefully when I get ready to grade weeks 2, that I'll see a difference, and hopefully with week 3 as well. Okay, well, today's news looks like we've been adding a little break from the political stuff to say some prayers for Tiger Woods. Heard that horrible accident today out in California, so we just hope and say he's not going to lose his life of it, but hopefully he's not going to end up being quadriplegic or not be able to either at least function normally. It might be time for him to retire. It sounds funny, retiring at 45, but that's what happens in athletics. So I keep people like that. I keep people in prayer all the time. So, and then I'm still praying for this country. It's people. I pointed out the other day that we crossed over the 500,000 mark of losing people from this pandemic. I am not happy about that. The only thing I'm happy about is that I'm not one of those. And you should be happy about that yourself. But I'm sure that you, like myself, know people who should be in that number, but you don't want to be in that. So just be mindful that this thing is no joke, and with these new strains coming out, these are not political statements. This is a health statement, and you know, I appreciate each and every one of my students. And so I don't want anything to happen to you guys. Make sure that you follow the processes that you do. Some of you work out there on the front line. You may be working grocery stores or whatever you do. You know, I pray for you guys that have to do that. I'm fortunate to have a job where I'm able to stay in for classes. Many of you in this program, unless you're in law enforcement, and when I say law enforcement, we say law enforcement two ways here at this school. Law enforcement in terms of the program that is in Minnesota, specifically those who have to take the post test. You have a portion that you have to do where you go to the school itself. I don't think any of the other states do. I know that the rest of us, we stay online with it. So very important, guys. Make sure that you do so. All right, so let's dive right into oh, Alexandria has the post course. Alexandria is in Virginia. Oh, yeah. Well, I know that. Yeah, if you're in Minnesota, that's why I said Minnesota. The uh, post test is specific to Minnesota. So all of my students who take my classes have to. You have a portion that you have to do residentially to fulfill so many of the hours in your state to become law enforcement officers. Hey, there, Illinois. We just had a new law that was passed and signed by the governor, and part of it is a requirement for certification for police officers. Some of the unions are not happy about it. I heard one police chief say that it's going to shackle the hands of law enforcement. I disagree with that because the disparity about some of the actions that have been taking place adversely affecting uh, minority individuals, where law enforcement officers did things that they were not supposed to do, whether it's Hispanic, Asian Americans, or either African Americans. A lot of stuff needs to be fixed, and I know that I'm preparing my students to be prepared, because remember I said 3 tiers: ethical, professional, and educated. So let's delve right in so you can learn some more stuff to help you to do a good job as a professional. All right, because we have a number of things we're going to cover. Again, there's let's move up, put you 4 guys up in the corner. The adversity to springboard to success. So most of you have had a chance to look at that. Share it with others as well. It's my commentary about life and how, as my grandma used to say, when you get some lemons, time to make lemonade. All right, that's so. That's uneven. I don't like uneven stuff, so I have to fix that. Okay, I want to fix that. There we go. I like things nice and in order. Okay, it should be back in order now. No, it's not. Oh, I know why. Okay, on your end it probably is, but I'll have to do something later to change that, and I will, but I'm not going to do it right now. Okay, the rubric for week 3 is here again. You can open this up and you can see the rubric. for the written assignment that's coming up. It says spousal, should be spousal rape. All right, it was misspelled there. Have to have them to fix that one. As well as types of crime committed. So anyway, 2-page minimum length. And you're going to have 2 parts to this. Now, be aware that the first part is a 2-page. What kind of format are we using for written assignments? There we go. Thank you, Trinity. APA. A student asked me one time, well, do we use APA? Well, if you go back here, it says on your course homepage, all written assignments should be in APA format. All, not some. All right, so there's your answer. So, well, why didn't you mention it in the rubric? We did. It's down here. So you'll lose points if you don't. So you got to do APA, double space, Romans 12, cover page, reference page, separate reference page, and then, of course, citations in the body. Don't throw me a gratuitous citation. When I say a gratuitous citation, I mean like at the beginning or somewhere in the middle, or especially at the bottom. We will. Don't worry, you'll get to the assignment. No, this is it. This is another place where you can find the. I think you're asking me, where is this assignment? My course is Module 3 assignment. Huh? No. Module 3. This course today is Introduction to Corrections. Today is Tuesday. Drugs and crime is Wednesday. I think I'm right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So you're a day early. I'll see you tomorrow. Okay. Okay. I have my students love me so much that they come to the wrong class. But you know what? I don't know the difference, because the reason why is because many of you are in both classes. Xu Yang, I think you're in both classes, aren't you? Aren't you in the drugs and crime and introduction to, yeah, I thought so. I don't know who else in this group is, but I know that Xu Yang is in both. But so she came in today just to say hi. I'll see her tomorrow. We'll see her tomorrow in class, those of you who are in this class. So anyway, back to the point. So it's spousal rape, and so it's a 2-page document, as I said earlier, that it is double space, and then the second part is an interview, which is a 1-page length. Now, and please do me a favor, please separate the two. You don't have to say what the first page is, 2 pages, but you can say it, the second one, the interview. Separate it after you've done the 2 pages for this. Minimum 1-page length. So it's a 3-page assignment, okay? Double space, in which you explain how you will approach the interview, sensitive questions that must be asked. See, I'm glad I did the rubric right away because it let a few people know that they were a little early. And then here, your usual information that you'll see is the organization, content, grammar, dealing with spelling and appropriate paragraphs, double spacing, and the formal academic stuff, such as double spacing, no typos and things like that. And then finally the APA information. Okay. So very important. All right. So that's the rubric. That's one place you're going to see it. So then we're going to do announcement 3 in just a minute. But before we do this, let's go to the course calendar. Here we are here for the 23rd, which is tonight. Initial post. What type of homicide is this? I've looked at a few of yours. You've done pretty well with that. The reading assignment, of course, was posted on yesterday. Here with the details for what we're going to cover tonight also. And then your reply post is due Saturday. And then your written assignment, which I just showed you the rubric on spousal rape, is here. And the details are in the rubric. And then your quiz, timed quiz, is due as well. Oh, by the way, when we get to, they fixed that flash thing, but they turned it into a Word document. It's going to be something that's going to be valuable. You'll see when we get there in just a few minutes, so that we'll be able to utilize that as well. And this is the last week in the month of February, which ends Sunday. There is no 29th of February. There is never a 30th or 31st of February. You always see these jokes on Facebook that people say things like, I'm going to quit eating food, period, starting the 29th. Or rather, they'll say the 30th of February because they might not realize this is not a leap year. So there is never a 30th or 31st in February. Sometime every 4 years, there's a 29th, which constitutes leap year. But this year there is not. Therefore, February ends at 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time, which coincidentally happens to be when your assignments are considered late for week number 3. Okay, with the exception of discussion posts, which are late if posted after the 27th. Okay, with your written assignments, you know what I'm talking about, and your quiz. All right, so we're all straight there. Oh, no, we're not, because I got to do my usual. See how close we are to ending? Look at that. Remember, next Monday will be the 1st, right? Look at how close we are to ending this course. That's why you cannot afford to fall behind in the course. And so as I said, when we finish this at midnight, 11:59 p.m., assignments from week 1, 2, or 3 could not be accepted. You still might be docked points, although I'm very, I gave most people breaks during week 1, but week 2 going forth, I'm going to give a deduction for points if they're submitted late, with the exception of extenuating circumstances. And we already discussed during week 1 how you can let me know about extenuating circumstances. So you see the course actually ends on the 19th. There is no extension unless you got an incomplete that was already set up. Never come to me and ask for an incomplete if you haven't completed. I have students that have come to me in the past and asked for incompletes, not necessarily in this particular course, but in all the courses that I teach. And they said, Professor, I'd like to get an incomplete. And then I look and see that the percentage of work that they've completed is 5%. Ain't gonna happen. We don't do a cramming where you can turn in all your assignments. That's a disservice to you. And it's not learning, it's just earning a grade. And like I said, remember, you shouldn't be taking this course to get a good grade primarily. You should be taking this course to learn about an area such as criminal law to help you become a good professional. That's what you should be doing. Ergo, if you follow the procedures, do well, you will also get a good grade, end up on the dean's list and honor roll. All right. So the 19th is the last day, and we will then have a break after that until the spring quarter. We'll be off all the way from the 19th. At least you guys will, because I have to turn in your grades by the 22nd, and then I'm off. We might have professional development, but anyway, the point of the matter is that we start the spring on the 5th. You're gonna find out, by the way, that we're back online again for the 5th for the spring. You'll get a letter coming up in a few weeks to let you know about that. I was just tipping you off to it. So it's not coming from me, it's coming from leadership. All right. So we're all set here on the calendar. Each of you should have received my PowerPoints for week number 3. I sent them out to you already. So your discussion assignment utilizing these facts with Rick and James. Pretty cute, huh? If you know anything about, there's a musician that I happen to get to know personally. He was a real wild guy, Rick James, maybe before some of your time, but he's passed away. I think Tina Marie, his girlfriend, I think they're still alive. So anyway, so Rick and James. So the course developers took both of these names and turned them into characters that are involved in this scenario. So you're going to read the scenario, and then for your initial post, you're going to operate as the investigating officer, and then determine what criminal charges would you recommend against James, whether it should be one of these: first-degree murder, involuntary manslaughter, or voluntary manslaughter. We'll talk about these tonight. Explain how it's applicable and why the officers and why the others are not, rather. So that's your initial post, and then your reply post you take contrast with another student's post. And you already know the initial post is due tonight by 11:59 p.m. Central Standard, and the reply post is due by Saturday, 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. Submitting both posts on Sunday will get you no points. So now the written assignment that I already elaborated on. This is a 2-part assignment, and we're going to deal in this various degrees of homicide, battery, domestic violence, and sexual assault. In this case, you apply the sexual assault laws to this real world scenario that's given to you. Okay, and consider what type of interview questions you ask in part 2. So in the first part, you'll need to read this scenario and write, it says, a short paper, but we already told you how long that paper will be. And it tells you in the assignment, not just in the scenario, but right here, 2 pages, not counting the reference page or the cover page. And so you're going to do all 3 of these. Now, If you use your textbook or outside sources, which I hope you will use outside sources more than your textbook, but it's okay to use your textbook. But if you do use your textbook solely, you know what will happen with your written assignment. Does anybody remember what happens if you just use your textbook as a sole source in your papers? How it affect your grade? Do you know? Remember? Anybody remember? It's on the course homepage. Well, the answer is you'll lose 2 points. So, well, professor, it's not in the rubric. I says your course homepage happens to give you coverage for all written assignments. That's why it says all in APA. And then it also talks about research is required. So include a reference page followed by APA citations, formatting, and format requirements. Cite your sources. Cite your sources. Part 2, conducting the interview. What types of interview questions you'd ask to determine which criminal law has been violated. By the way, if your interview questions are submitted, should they be closed-end questions or open-ended questions? Which one? Anybody know? Okay, well, in the interest of time, the answer is a mixture. Generally, though, open-ended questions are questions that call for more information. For example, did you take that book? Is a closed-end question because the answer is going to be or yes or no. Or could you explain to me? Could you explain to me uh, what is the issue involved here? Or what issue is involved here? That's open-ended because it's going to require details and information. So you're going to use this scenario. Remember, you're using a different scenario to conduct the interview. So you meet with Jackie and you have to interview her because what you're doing now, remember, you're investigating this crime. And Timothy isn't present and has not returned home since Jackie discovered what happened. Ask her detailed and sensitive questions about what happened to determine what criminal elements have been met. This is a one page. Explain how you will approach the interview. Explain that. And then 2, what sensitive questions will you ask? Don't give me 2 questions. Don't give me 3 questions. Just remember, we're talking about a one-page document, double spaced. And then, of course, you have the guides to help you. Once again, one more time, final time, the rubric showing the due date, as I've already shared, the number of possible points, and it gives you this, okay? And it tells you the same thing that we already went over. So you see the rubric there for a total of 40 points. So that's another place you get it. By the way, if you want to know in your grade book, you'll see each of these sections. Sometimes you won't see any comments under all of them. Let's say, for example, if you meet the minimum requirement for paging, I won't tell you you met the requirements. I'll check the box. But if you fell short on something, I will put a comment right up under it. You'll see that that's where you see your feedback. It says feedback. I have students that say to me, they just look at their grade and the checkbox, and they don't look down below. If you don't see anything below, that means you satisfied everything in here. Okay. So I would, like, for example, say that you lost so many points because you didn't meet the 2-page minimum requirement. I'll put that in here. Customarily, that's 3 points. And in here, same. If it's one, don't meet the 1-page length. Remember, 1 page. Okay. So you'll lose points for that. And then grammar, spelling, and so forth. And then, of course, APA, if you do not provide citations in the body and references in the end, you will lose, of course, 5 points. If you did APA proper and all of that, but you didn't have a cover page, you will lose a single point. So make sure your papers are properly formatted, and then never use Wikipedia. I already explained that before. All right. So these 3 right here, these 2 right here are standard in all the rubrics for this particular course. Any questions about the written assignment? Type in the chat box and I will see them. If none, then I'll presume that you don't have any. Okay. So let's look into the topics, because we have a lot of topics to cover. We will not be going to them in detail because I want to try to let you go pretty close to 9:30, finishing up each of these. So again, I sent you the module. Read the section assault through the end of chapter, not the whole chapter 4. So that means the PowerPoints that you got, you'll have the whole thing, but and you'll use that another time. But assault is what you're going to use for now. And then chapters 5 and 6. So we're going to talk about homicide, battery, domestic violence, and sexual assault crimes, and we'll be done. And then we're going to go over these for a few minutes to show you how those work. Let's shut that down. Okay, let's get to it. So what is homicide? Homicide, very simply defined in its most basic, is killing. The killing of an individual. Homicides can be justifiable or either unlawful. Justifiable homicide can take place with police officers when deadly force is used to prevent great bodily harm or death to themselves or others. Now, if they do it without that, then they're going to be guilty of one of these charges below that we're going to talk about. Now, you can also find out that if you as an individual exercise self-defense for the same reasons, to prevent great bodily harm or death of great bodily harm to yourself or death of others, then you can utilize that as well and be justified. And then there are other exceptions which we won't get into, like the castle law that involves your home and stuff like that, but I'm not going to get into that. We'll talk about that in a little bit. All right. So murder is this, the unlawful killing of a person by another. So let's talk about this. Now, be aware that before we get into these topics, that jurisdictions vary. Your jurisdiction might be different from my jurisdiction, but the essence of what we're talking about, and be aware of this, good people, when you are taking the quiz, make sure you apply what is in the material for determination, and you'll see a little bit more about that in just a few minutes. So what is first degree murder? Causing the death of another human being, premeditation and intent to kill that person. So causing the death of that person with premeditation, or we use the term malice and a forethought. And what that really means is that you actually have planned the activity. And so premeditation involves forethought or planning. And then you intended to kill the person, not accidentally or losing control. We'll talk about that in just a few minutes. So anyway, in Minnesota, murder in the first degree, they use that term, causing death of another with premeditation and intending to kill that person. Okay? So intent has to be provided. How do you demonstrate intent? A number of ways. You can do it by plotting and scheming. Maybe you can email or text someone, or you can post in social media. Um, um, and so, such as screaming, "You're going to die," and then fire the gun at the victim. That includes intent. Oh, I was just joking when I said that. Not going to fly. It's going to be going straight to premeditation that you intended to kill that individual, and you could end up with first-degree murder. Evidence of a motive can be uncovered to show that the person intended to kill. For example, email evidence, like I said, indicating that the killer planned to kill victims in an effort to collect maybe insurance money, or either just threaten the individual and then kill them after that. Okay, so that's first degree murder. So basically, that's one of the harshest, because what it says is that your state of mind was intended to take somebody out of this world. The second degree murder, often called voluntary manslaughter in many jurisdictions, takes place when the defendant knowingly causes the death of another person. So what's the difference? No prerequisite of premeditation. In other words, it might happen in the heat of passion. That's where we usually use the term. Let's say, for example, you come and you find your spouse in the bed with another guy, or another female in this case, the way we're going now. Anyway, with another person, and you kill them both. You could be so incensed by that you lose control. You probably could be found guilty of second degree murder. So it lacks premeditation, but includes the intentional killing. It can still include second degree murder, as I said, known as voluntary manslaughter, when the killing is done without prior intent. A heat of passion killing, as I talked about, takes place. All right. Give an example here. Heat of passion killings are applied in murder cases when it happens immediately in the moment. You don't get upset and on your way, because then you get to first degree murder. It happens simultaneous, where you've lost control, or that your mind kind of like leaves your body and it puts you in a state of shock. Okay. And so then you'd have second degree murder or voluntary. Did I say involuntary? No, I said voluntary manslaughter. Intentional killing or knowing killing of another in a state of passion, produced by adequate provocation sufficient to lead a reasonable person to act irrationally, such as one I just described a few minutes ago. Okay. So now let's talk about special circumstances before we talk about involuntary manslaughter, which is primarily going to be involved with vehicles. Smooth this up here. So here are some special circumstances. I kind of started getting off into that earlier, but I stopped myself. First degree homicide special circumstances. There are aggravating factors are considered in death penalty cases. More and more states are doing away with the death penalty. One other state, I can't remember which one, just recently did away with the death penalty. I personally don't believe in the death penalty, which everyone is shocked to hear me say based on what you know about my life story. But I think that it takes a person out of uh, uh, the misery they suffer for living uh, for the rest of their life in jail behind bars. Gives them a way out. The reason why I'm against the death penalty is because of the disparate impact that's been demonstrated on minorities, and also because of the fact that there's now many um, 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 programs that exonerate individuals in wrongful conviction programs that were on death row that were removed because of the fact they discovered that the person didn't really do the offense. So my thing is, as I said a long time ago, one innocent person dying is too many, okay? Future dangerousness. The probability that the defendant would commit criminal act of violence would constitute a continuing serious threat to society. That's when death penalty in some jurisdictions apply. Making sure they got the right person, of course. Violence, conduct that was, unless there's an exception, such as the mental state of the individual. But the conduct was outrageously vile, horrible, inhumane, something like that. All right. So now let's talk about second degree homicide special circumstances. So basically, second degree murder, remember, has one element to the crime that distinguishes it from first degree. There's an intent in both, but in the second degree, remember, in the second degree, knowingly and not premeditated. Not premeditated. Okay. So so here's some circumstances that make up the evidence of knowingly in a second degree murder case. This occurs when circumstances that deprive a reasonable person of self-control, such as one I just mentioned. Bob comes home and finds Jim in bed with Bob's wife. Bob shoots and kills Jim. Bob would likely argue adequate provocation. In these instances, second degree murder may be an appropriate charge in some states. Remember what I said? That second degree murder is also called what in states? Type it. I just said it a little while ago. What is it? One of you guys should know this. Type it in the chat box. It'll pop up. I'll see it. Nobody's gonna know the answer? Or are you there? I ask questions because I want to know if you're with me in terms of discussions, but I also, because I have seen situations where people will log in and then they will go and cook their food or watch TV or something else and come in at the end of the video. Oh, okay. If you're at work, that's okay. And you're out in and out. So anyway, the answer to it is voluntary manslaughter, voluntary. So second-degree murder may be appropriate in some jurisdictions. Coercion or necessity, because the person was told, for example, Jack is taken hostage, and the hostage taker has a gun to his head, and the hostage takers tell Jack to shoot Bob or I will kill you myself. Coercion or duress, he shoots Bob. So that could be a special circumstance that's applicable. I would consider it as a defense as well, because you were in fear of being injured or killed yourself. And then some statutory, such as affirmative defenses, utilized to reduce the crime, or affirmative defense acknowledge the crime was committed, but offer some justification, like what I just said a few minutes ago, where the gun was at your head. And so it becomes an affirmative defense, so that you're not really guilty of the offense that you could be charged with. Florida references murder with a depraved mind, when the murder happens in the heat of passion, that is, adequate provocation would create a second degree. Remember when I said you lose control, you get that. So look at your state and see what the state says. All right, so those are special circumstances. Involuntary manslaughter, pretty much we talk about this, involves no premeditation, no intent, but something you did recklessly, such as driving a vehicle under the influence of drugs or alcohol, resulting in the death of an individual. Of course, you intend on killing that individual. And then we deal with recklessness, and the recklessness, utter disregard, or utter indifference, or recklessness. Now, remember, utter disregard or utter indifference takes you to first-degree murder. That means you neglected, like for example, I'll show you an idea of what I'm talking about in just a few minutes. Reckless simply means indifferent or careless to the welfare of others, such as what you find out where a person is speeding just to impress somebody. Then that gets to be first degree. But driving under influence will put a person in a involuntary manslaughter state. Okay, so look at this. The cases below here show involuntary manslaughter. 11:30 p.m. cold January day, the streets are dry, and Jim is intoxicated. There you go. As soon as you see that, you're heading toward involuntary manslaughter. And operating at a high rate of speed, and Jane is seated next to him, is also intoxicated, so he decides to impress Jane and accelerates in excess of 80 degrees and kills a person. The thing that makes it involuntary is the addition of the alcohol. If it was not, then we get back to utter disregard or utter indifference, which is first degree. The reckless act of doing it while under the influence of drugs, alcohol, makes it second degree. All right. Then the one-punch homicide, involuntary manslaughter, can involve batteries, where it means one punch of an individual has resulted in the death, such as knocking a person down and they hit their head. You can watch these clips to learn more about those as well. All right, so that's dealing with homicide. Now we talk about battery, and we're not going to spend a lot of time on this. Battery, now let me explain something to you really quick. In some jurisdictions, assault is battery. I think that's not good because it indicates some confusion. But battery can be a misdemeanor in most cases because it is not serious. Where it says a person is charged with intending to batter another and causes a minor injury. Substantial battery is called a felony or aggravated assault in some jurisdictions. Aggravated assault involves using a weapon or something that might cause serious injury. Now, common elements of battery: simple battery, intentional act to injure a person without consent. So therefore, accidentally bumping somebody is not a battery. No. And it talks about how in some jurisdictions, such as Utah, a simple battery is called assault, which is confusing. Let me show you why. Because here's the let me show you. You see me raising my hand? Before you, I might, or either holding a weapon in my hand, that is assault. But if I use that weapon on you, then I'm going to get into what we call aggravated battery. Assault is something that precedes a battery or could, where a person is placed in fear of being struck, but you don't strike them. So you can still be charged with assault. But we usually use the term assault and battery together because assaults generally precede the take of a battery. So, so if I do this and then I hit you, so I assaulted you first and then I hit you. Okay, even if I do it all in one motion. So assault creates a reasonable belief that someone might be harmed. No physical harm or contact unless the assault is defined otherwise, like in the state of Utah. But once again, get into your head that assault does not require touching someone. So firing a weapon at someone and missing that person, what would you call that? No, no, it doesn't fit with what I just said. Yeah, that's lethal force. But what would you call it in terms of what we're talking about? Okay, yes, assault. But because a weapon is involved, it would be aggravated assault. Okay? Because you didn't hit him. You missed. So it would be aggravated assault because of the weapon. There you go. All right. Now, let me ask you this. If you're a boxer, a black belt, and you raise your hand to somebody and you swing at them and miss, is that, first of all, we already know it's assault. We established that. Is it aggravated assault or is it just assault? You would say just assault. How about this? I just said that the person was a boxer or either a person who is registered, Kung Fu registered. Did you not know that those hands then become lethal weapons? Professional boxers, same thing. So therefore, you could argue, if I was a prosecutor, that that's an aggravated because of using a deadly weapon. That's why I threw in the part about a black belt or either a boxer. You see my point? Okay. Battery is when someone strikes someone against their will and involves actual physical contact. So then That same person I just talked about is a boxer or either a registered black belt or one of those martial arts people strike you, it wouldn't be battery. It would be aggravated battery because they used a dangerous weapon, i.e. these things. All right. So you get the deal of it. Okay, so anyway, and like I said, notice what it says here. Explore the laws in your state to determine how the terms assault and battery are used. However, moving forward, pay attention to that. Battery will be used in the term to describe when one person intentionally and without consent assaults another and causes injury. I do not like that. I don't like that, even though that's technically correct. But if, like, for example, if you come up behind somebody and you pop them or push them, would that be assault and battery, or would it just be battery? Which one? Would it be assault and battery? If you push him from behind, probably battery, because of the fact that unless that person is aware that you pushed them, but let's say you just surprise somebody from behind, then it wouldn't be assault, because remember, assault, reasonable belief that harm may occur. But if you're in a scenario where that occurs, then it does occur. So the only reason I said that is because I tried to make it seem as if a person was not aware that they were getting ready to have a battery placed on them. All right. And then there's a whole lot of stuff that I'm not going to spend a lot of time on. But I do want to mention mayhem before I leave this, is that every person who unlawfully and maliciously deprives a human being of a member of their body, like the fingers, arms, legs, eyes, or disfigures an individual, such as using acid, hot water, or something, or cuts the individual, disables the tongue, or puts an eye out, or something like that, is considered as mayhem. And this is an example here. And so I'm not going to get into that, but you can look at that. Batteries occur between complete strangers and even among those who love each other. So we're going to talk about domestic violence in just a few minutes, like right now. As you both, all of you students know me, how I feel about this, because that's how I lost both my parents, if you listen to my story. It is an offense that when I was a police officer, they used to tell us that one of the worst calls that we could get was domestic violence. And the reason being is because we could have two potential enemies. The person who called you, who called for 911, as well as the person who committed the offense. We have been placed in situations, and you have heard, or you will hear if you go into training, that you could potentially have to watch the person that called you. I remember an instance where, when I was a police officer, I remember several, but one jumps out at me, of a woman who had been beaten by her husband. Actually, it was her live-in boyfriend, and beat her. And we were taking him into custody, but one of us was assigned to watch her. And we saw her sitting on the couch. She ended up going to the couch and sitting down crying. And we were putting this guy in handcuffs, and it was a little struggle. And so she started reaching down between the cushions of the couch. And one of us yelled, "Get your hands out from behind. Get up, get away from over there." As she moved, reached down in there, she was reaching for a weapon. And she wasn't going to use it against him. She was going to use it against us. So And so domestic violence is one of the most challenging calls, and a lot of law enforcement officers lose their lives oftentimes. And so it happens within a domestic relationship. That is where persons uh, uh, live together, or let's put it here, right here. Domestic violence in most states contain the elements: the adults are at least 18 years old, two adults at least 18 years old, who live or have lived together or have a child in common. That is how domestic violence occurs. Okay. Some states like Alaska extended to even further to include adults or minors, which makes some sense because there are situations where there are minors involved, like a 17-year-old or a 16-year-old involved in those situations. So that's where some states have picked that up, like Alaska. Okay, so again, you can read this over, but I kind of already talked about this right here. And then police officers are definitely required in these situations to get the individual out of there, so that there's individuals who oftentimes will need a cooling off time, and so allows people to calm themselves down. And then there's a lot of times orders of protection that are issued, or temporary restraining orders, keeping people away from each other. Notice what it says. Two studies have found that at least 40% of police officer families experience domestic violence. Since carrying a firearm is a part of that job, police officers convicted of domestic violence are often terminated from their employment as well. Right, and then here's some stuff that you can take time to read there. All right. So we're a little over our time, but I think this is the last part, I believe. Yeah, it is. Let's talk about sexual assault. Sexual assault basically occurs with the act of unlawful intercourse by a male with a female, other than his wife, without her consent. However, that was the way it used to be. It is now gender neutral. So that means that males and upon females, females upon females, and males upon males. And it doesn't require that the intercourse actually take place, but include unlawful touching of a private part of the person's body, uh, and those kinds of things. And these kinds of crimes are actually committed, and a lot of times not reported because of the embarrassment that takes place. But you see that hand up? No means no. Well, they were upset, but so they didn't really mean no. So I kept going. Now, there are some instances in jurisdictions where husband and wives are together. In some jurisdictions where they still allow the protection to still exist from being charged with rape. But if you're separated or those kind of situations, then it's going to be the same as if you were a person that didn't live together. All right. So be aware that it doesn't involve the actual contact. But look at what, they have different degrees based upon the age, dealing with sexual penetration or contact with a person underage. This is to protect underage. So you got a first degree. Notice that it gets real serious. Second degree, where the same is involved. And so the intentional touching, that's when you get into second degree. And then third degree, again, forbids a person from engaging in sexual penetration and in the following situations. These are various jurisdictions and each have it. You'll see sexual assault used more than the straight word rape itself. And then you go to the various degrees. You can take a look at that. I do want to point out two things about these cases. There's statutory rape, and it depends on the age of the individual, varies from state to state, where it is what we call a strict liability crime. And the only thing that the state has to prove is that intent is not necessary, but just the mere act of engaging in sexual conduct with a person who is not capable legally in that jurisdiction of giving consent is what we call statutory rape. It's not, well, the person lied to me, or you got a problem. You got a problem. And then there's what we call rape shield laws, which are overdue, which allow individuals to come forth and report and testify about sexual abuse without the fear of being embarrassed. Prior to rape shield laws, defense attorneys could use the prior prior sexual conduct or question that person about that, and it's admissible. So, for example, a defendant will likely not be able to introduce the fact that a victim's sexual assault has a reputation. Doesn't have anything to do with it. They remove that which is good. So that's what rape shield laws are. Okay. And that's it. That's it. So now let's get into showing you. Now, remember I showed you key terms. So now what they've done is this. If you click on the topic, it opens it up. Remember before it used to have some things, but now it actually gives you a Word document. And I'm going to open it up and show you. Okay, I just downloaded it. So I'm going to open it up and you should see it. And download it yourself on your own computer when you do that yourself. And what it does is it gives you definitions. I put enable editing because that way. So it tells you what these definitions are and what they mean. So it helps you to prepare. And it's a whole lot of them. So you want to go over those. Okay. So it's a summary to help you get ready for the exam, which I thought was good. Again, what I discovered is that under the old system, they used a flash, which no longer exists. They didn't, it was just discontinued. So you can't use that to practice, but you can use this list as a study sheet. Don't have that sheet in front of you when you take the quiz. That is a violation of academic integrity. I'm telling you up front. Well, how do you know? It'll catch up with you, trust me. But you don't want to do that. We already discussed academic integrity and integrity, but none of my students are going to be guilty of that. So here's some practice for special circumstances. Remember that we talked about special circumstances way up here. Special circumstances. Well, here's some examples. I'm going to test you out with one of these or two of these before we move on. So you click on that. And let's look at the activity. So now, here we go. Tell me. Jane and Phil have been married for 10 years. They have 2 children together. Jane also has a drinking problem. She comes home drunk and argues with Phil. Phil threatens to leave Jane and take the children if she didn't get help. Enraged, Jane shot Phil and fled the house with their children. What special circumstances would she claim? Which one? Type it. Which one? Okay. Take the question mark off. Because that's correct. Because she was upset with Phil. That's good. One more. Mary and John have been married for 15 years. Mary discovers that John has been having an affair for the past year. They argue and sleep in separate beds that night. In the middle of the night, still very upset, Mary stabs John once with a knife while he's asleep. John survives, and Mary tells police she couldn't control herself. What circumstances would she likely claim? Which one? Was it necessity or coercion? How about this one? Adequate provocation. Same thing as the other. Remember, she was upset and she stabbed him in a heat of passion. However, I don't think it'll fly. You know why? Because he's asleep. She might have a problem there using that. So she had to lose control at the time. All right. So there might be an issue there. You see the delay in the time. I know a person who was convicted of murder of their husband because they waited until he went to sleep to shoot him. Excuse me. Homicide classifications. We talked about these at the very beginning. Frank has a long-standing hatred for Kim. So Frank bought a handgun and hid behind the bushes. There's a reason for saying these things. When Kim exited, he shot her. What classification best describes this case? Which one? Mm-hmm. Exactly. Remember the waiting and planning. It demonstrates it. Yeah, planning it. There you go. John is a gang member who is involved in an ongoing battle for drug sales and turf. John tells his other gang members that he's going to kill Jose, a rival gang member. John leaves with a handgun and kills Jose. What homicide classification fits here? And the reason being is because his words. Oh, postpone. I got to choose one. Oh, okay. The answer was, yeah, you were right. Okay. So we're not going to do this one. I want you to study those yourself. But the answer was yes, it was first degree murder because when he said what he said, that did it. All right. So then you get into the most important section. Remember what I said. This is week 3. So you have the quiz. Remember, you have, and the quiz covers modules 1, 2, and 3. So how do you prepare for those? You make sure you take these practice quizzes. Look at that list that they gave you because they're going to show up on the test. And these are some of the questions that are likely in one form or another. The intent to cause death with premeditation is considered what type of murder? Yep. Yep. Exactly. Yep. One more, and then we're out of here. A father comes home to find his daughter's 17-year-old boyfriend, of whom he doesn't like, about to have consensual intercourse with his 17-year-old daughter. Outraged and out of control, the father kills the boyfriend. The father is likely to claim what? What's he going to claim? What's the father going to claim? I didn't say what he's going to be charged with. I said, what's he going to claim? Mm-hmm. Yep. Adequate provocation where he lost self-control. So anyway, go through and study those and utilize those. Okay. Any questions? Type in the chat box if you have any. Any questions? Well, here's the point. You have a quiz coming up. Remember, very important that you do well on it because it's a midterm basically for you. 1 to 3 will be covered in this. Go back and look at those practice things and utilize those to help you along with the PowerPoints. It's probably difficult to prepare reading the whole chapters and all of that, but having completed the assignments should also leave something in the mind stuck there. So you want to make sure that you especially utilize those practice quiz questions. All right. So with that, I'm going to say good night, and I'm going to let you go with the phrase assault and battery. That's what I want you to give me. Assault and battery for your points. Put that in the Dropbox. Those of you who are here can put them in now and get your grade pretty fast. So that's all for me for this week. I will see you next week, but no longer in February. It will be in March, unless I talk to you or see any of you before that. All right, so I'm going to say good night and see you next week at the same time. All righty. Yes, you did. I'm not saying it again. I gave it. I gave it. You have to listen to the tape then. Yep, I gave it. All right. I did give it, but I'm not going to ask you to say it. But Julio and Xu Yang, did you get it? Yes, I gave it. Okay. Don't ask another student what it is. That is a violation of the ethical academic integrity code. So go back and I'm sorry you missed it. I know you're probably working or something that's taking place, but anyway, yes, I did give it. So, and it's there. All right, I'll see you next week. Have a good week. Stay safe as well. Good night.